All right, good enough. You know, it's scary teaching just ladies. Did you know that? Because you wouldn't want to make this bunch of women mad at you, that's for sure. So how many, when you get mad, you fight dirty? You fight dirty when you get mad? Okay. How many just don't get mad? It's not in your nature to get mad. Okay. In Texas, we have a term for when ladies get mad. It's called heifering out. And that's the term. And so when you make a woman mad in Texas, she will pull out a gun out of her purse and she'll shoot you. And that's the way it is right there. And I love your pink glasses, and I need a pair. Can I use those pink glasses? Would that be okay? No, I can't use those pink glasses right there. How many of your mom's at home right now? Your mom's at home right now. Your mother, is home right now, and she's awake. You're convinced she's awake right now. All right, you got it? All right, who's from Pacific? Who's from Pacific? Oh, good night. Good grief. And who's from Pacific and your mom is home right now? I mean, she's like probably right home right now. Brother Ross, which one of these young ladies, their mother could give me interesting answers to some spontaneous questions if I called right now? Right there? All right. What is your number to your mother? And don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. Write on a piece of paper and give it up to me. And what's your mom's name? Brenda? All right. Hurry. Write it on a piece of paper. Don't text your mother and tell her I'm calling either. So write it on a piece of paper. You don't know your mother's number. You have to look at the phone. She got a new phone? All right, let me see your phone because she'll answer your call. Are you ready? She has two phones. Are you ready? Her name's not Brenda. It's Mama. And so... Here, will she answer my call, you think? Hopefully. Okay, here we go. Would you like to find out the truth about Brenda? Okay, you ready? I'm going to put this on speaker, and we're going to ask Mama publicly a couple of questions about Brenda. And is it Sydney? About Brenda. Her name's Sydney. Sydney, right? Mama's Brenda. And isn't that sad? I'm getting old to where I have to wear my eye bobs. No, seriously. That's what these are called. They are called eye bobs. Look them up if you want fashion and style. No, I'm serious. These are called eye bobs. You go online, you look them up, and I'm a Graham Bob who wears eye bobs, and so I'm going to make them famous. All right, let me make sure I got this number right. Have y'all ever seen this done before? I did this one time, and I called a mom, and I'm on the phone, and I said, "Hey, Mom, this is Brother Gray." And she said, "Brother who?" I said, "Brother Gray. And your son, Tim, is at the youth conference we're attending." "My son's where?" I thought my son was going over to his friend's house to spend a couple of days. He's where? He was 8 hours from his house, and Mama didn't know it. Your mom does know you're here, right? Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Are you serious? Hang on. Let me make sure I got it right. Oh, I did it wrong. I dialed Germany. All right, here we go. How many are awake? Are you awake? Good. Now that the guys are gone, does it smell better in here? That's what you think. And, okay, I got it. It's like, you lied. Your mother's not named Brenda. You're probably not a U.S. citizen either. So. Okay. Turn it up just a little bit. Here we go. Sydney? Is she asleep? She's not going to answer because she doesn't know the phone number. No. I'll call her from here. Wow. Hello, my name's Brenda. Do not tell your mom I said that. I'm really not Brenda. And where's your speaker? Hello, Mom.
Yes.
Hey, this is Brother Bob, and I'm preaching a split session to the girls.
Okay.
And I just tried to call you on my phone, but you didn't answer me.
No, because I was on the phone with my mom.
Were you on the phone with your mother?
Yeah.
Do you love your mother?
I do.
Good.
She's like the Holy Spirit.
Is she?
Yeah.
My mother was like Hitler.
I'm so sorry. Is that what's wrong?
No, she was wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
Hey, Mom.
Yes.
I have you over the PA with all the girls here.
Okay.
And they all can hear you right now.
Hi, girls.
Wow. Really, that's the guys. And so, hey, and Sydney's your daughter?
Yes, sir.
Is she a good daughter?
She has her moments.
Okay.
She has her moments, but
Let's-
overall, yes.
She has her moments, right?
Yes, like we all do, right?
I hear you. I got a question for you right now.
Okay.
Right now.
Yes, sir.
What
Yes,
does
sir.
her room look like?
It actually looks clean. She had somebody over last night that could go with her this morning. They folded their blankets. Just a little bit of clothes on the floor, trying to pick out an outfit and in a hurry. But otherwise, not bad.
Good. Now I got a
Give it
question.
90%.
90%? That's not bad. Now,
Okay.
in the morning, which one of these three would best describe Sydney in the morning? One.
Is she cringing?
Yeah, she is right now. She's very much
She's
so.
bright red too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now, is she an angel in the morning? Is she Beelzebub in the morning? Which one?
Oh, I only have two to pick from?
Yeah, you only have two.
There's not like any of the seven dwarfs that I can pick from.
And which one of the seven dwarfs would she be?
Grumpy?
Grumpy. I love it. Does she snore?
No, sir, she doesn't. If
Does
she's
she
really, really
does,
tired.
does she drool?
Occasionally.
Occasionally?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, does she have a nickname? I mean, is there a name, a family?
Squid.
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 Okay.
Like the fish.
Oh,
Squid.
got it. Okay, here you go. Two more questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
When's the last time she got a whipping?
To her brother and sister, she didn't have enough of them.
Oh, but to you, when's the last time?
Let's see. She's 15. It was probably 8 or 9.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right. When's the last time she deserved a whipping?
Yesterday.
Yeah. She called that one. She said yesterday. So anyways. Well, Mom, thank you for letting me interview you about your daughter publicly.
No worries. I've met you. I'll be there tonight, and I'll make sure to introduce myself.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, girls.
Bye. Bye. All right. You deserved one yesterday? Okay. I know better than to ask you a question because, here we go. Ready? All right, so we're ready. There you go. Who is Mike? I'm kidding. And so here we go. Oh. All right, girls, are you ready? Are you ready? I'm going to talk about how to make yourself marketable. 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 How to pawn you off in marriage. How about that right there? I want to give you 5 words I want you to write down. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the majority of you will marry. And hopefully 100% of you that do get married will marry a man. And so hopefully we're not going to marry anything else. But can I tell you something, ladies? We're going to look at 5 scriptures that I want you, 5 words I want you to write down. It's going to take a lot of work right now, starting right now, between now and the time you get married. You're going to have to start going in front of the spiritual mirror and start getting ready for the day you get married. Because the day you get married won't turn you into a good wife. It's starting right now that it will turn you into a good wife. And if you can master these 5 words, I promise you that you will have a very happy marriage, and you will not get divorced, and you will not end up in ruin. If you cannot master these 5 words, listen to me, don't get married. Don't do that to a man, because you will drive a man absolutely crazy, and you will hurt your children, and you will hurt your home. Please listen to me. The other day I was going with a couple, and we were going through some things, and he had asked her to marry him. He had asked her to marry. Yeah, in Texas we do it backwards. And so he had asked, and so we were in a pre-engagement, and I was going over these 5 traits with her, and we got to 1, and she said, no. And I looked at him and I said, do not marry her, because if you marry her and she will not do that one of those 5, you will not have a happy marriage, and the children that will come from your marriage will not have a happy home. Truly, the beginning point of a happy home is the young lady sitting inside this room. You have a lot of work to do. And I don't mean that bad, you just have a lot of work to do. Because you're going to go from only caretaking one person to caretaking a husband and caretaking children. You no longer will have time to necessarily work on yourself. Your mothers are the hardest working creatures on this earth. They are multitaskers, but the homes that are not happy homes are the homes that have wives and mothers at the steering wheel of the home that never mastered these 5 words. And I'm sad to say that some of you are the recipient of being inside a home to where the mom has not mastered these 5 things. It doesn't make them bad. It just means this, that when your feet hit the ground, when you say, I do, you not only are taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of a very complicated man, and you'll be taking care of children. Now, the average young lady sitting here right now is probably sitting here going, Brother Gray, I could really care less about this, but I'm going to give you 5 words. Are you ready? I want you to write them down, and we're right on time. First word, are you ready? Are you ready? Submission. Submission. The first word is what? What's the first word? Go to Ephesians chapter 5, if you will. Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5. And the first word is what? Submission. Go to Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 22. Ephesians 5:22. I want you to look at it. It says this, wives, submit yourselves unto your own what? Husbands. If it only stopped there, please listen to me. Wives, submit yourselves, what's it say? Unto your own what? Husbands. If you only stopped right there, then you would not have to submit until you got married. But what does the rest of that verse say? As unto the what? Lord. Submission does not start at marriage. Submission starts at salvation. How many are saved? Raise your hand. Then you are preparing to be a good wife and a good mother at the point you got saved. You know what submission is? Submission is an inward yielding that produces an outward action. Every time I deal with wives and husbands and they're having a hard time, I always ask the wife this, can I ask you something? Are you totally yielded to your husband in your heart? And when she looks at me and says, not all the time, then that is why there's fighting and that is why there's problem. Submission truly is, if we're in a tug of war, watch this, we're in a tug of war between a wife and a husband, and it's going back and forth, and the wife's like, will not yield to what the husband wants, just will not yield. You know what she's telling me? That she has not learned to yield between her and her husband and her Lord. Because if she won't yield here, then guess what? That means she's not yielding here. I don't base the future of the homes of the teenagers on the young men yielding. Do you know where a good home comes from? It's when you young ladies at the end of a sermon can say this to the Lord, Lord, I yield. I'm not going to fight you on that one. I yield. I yield. Do you know everything that Pastor Johnson was preaching this morning? If you sat there and in your heart you went, I don't like what he just said. I don't like what he said. Do me a favor, never get married. Because if you can't yield to the Lord, then guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to yield to your husband. I am a long ways away from home. And right now my wife is back home, and she's already texted me 2 and 3 times, and here's what she said. She says, hey, I need to get something a little bit extra than the money you've given me. Is it okay if I get that? And what she wanted needs to wait for about 6 weeks. And so I text her back, said, sweetheart, if we can wait for 6 weeks, then I think I'll be in a position to get that you want. Can I tell you something? You know what her response was to me going this way? Her response was, okay, sweetheart, we can wait 6 weeks. You know what? It wasn't a fight back and forth. It was a yielding. You know how I know that she's a good Christian? Because I've seen her do that with the Lord. I was preaching Sunday night, and I was preaching on why people change. And I was talking out of Jeremiah where the Lord said, why trimmest thou thy ways to seek love? And I took a skirt, and it was all about the ladies would trim their skirts in the Old Testament until they caught the attention of a man approval, because they weren't being loved on by God. They had to trim their ways to get noticed by someone to find love. And in the middle of preaching that, my wife was crying on the second row. And at the invitation time, I went down and I said, sweetheart, are you okay? And she said, boy, I needed that. And the Lord convicted me tonight that maybe I'm changing a little bit to get people to like me. That's a pastor's wife. And I'm thinking to myself, no wonder her and I don't have a problem, because her and God are not fighting. But she started that when she was 12 and 13 years of age. She got into the habit of submission and yielding. Because I don't know if you know this or not, listen to me, you'll never be the husband of a marriage. That's deep, isn't it? That was too deep because some of you didn't get that. You'll never be the husband. Second thing, you're going to lose your identity the day you get married. Because the day you get married, you lose your last name. You take on the last name of your husband, and what your husband doesn't need is somebody going, I don't care what you say, I'm going to spend the money. I don't care what you say, I'm going to. Hey, let me tell you something. A man, when you get into this, watch this, are you ready? He's done. He is done, because he's not going to spend the rest of his days fighting with somebody. You better learn to submit to the Lord right now. And then there's other things we discussed this morning that she said, hey, sweetheart, can I do this and can I do that and can I go? And you know what it was? Yeah, go ahead and do that. Go do that. And if you're sitting here right now saying, I'll never check in with a man about anything. I'll have my own bank account, I'll have my own money, and I'll do whatever I want to do. Do me a favor, never get married. Don't do that to a man. Because a man has to conquer a kingdom, and that's why God gave him a marriage. And I'll tell you what he needs. He needs a submissive wife. The first word that's going to make you marketable, are you submissive? But you just are not submissive to a husband. That's secondary. You are submissive to the Lord primarily. I don't want my wife to be submitted to me first. I want her to be submitted to the Lord first. You're the weaker vessel. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're weaker. It means this. God always meant for you to be attached to a husband, if that's God's will for your life, and when you get married, but don't put your husband in a position to where he has to raise his voice, to where he has to get angry, to where he has to really bear down and get it done. It ought to be this. You ought to be yielded on the inside to the man. How do you start that process? You get into the habit of being yielded to God. And when you give in to God, when God speaks to your heart and you give in to God, be very sensitive to God. Yield, submission. Second word, are you ready? Second word. And by the way, I surprised my wife. The things she wanted, don't tell her, but it's on its way to her house. And so I'm a softie. And next, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 34. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse number 34. 1 Corinthians 7 and verse number 34. Trying to make you marketable, because I can tell you this. I think sometimes young ladies get a little bit stubborn. Did y'all know y'all can get stubborn? No, not me. And sure. And you know what? Sometimes, listen to me, a weak guy is looking for his mother to marry. And you'll mother him the rest of your life. Are you ready? A guy who's looking to be the man is looking for a lady who has that ability to submit. Now, that doesn't mean you don't lose your opinion. My wife 100 times will say, can I give you my opinion? Absolutely. Give me your opinion. And she'll give me her opinion. And then I'm like, thank you for the information. I now know how you feel, but I still feel like I need to go ahead and do this anyways. And after she's given her opinion, she's like, okay. There's other times she gives me her opinion, and she's right, and I hate it. And she'll give me her opinion, and she can always tell when I know she's right, because I start rocking on the balls of my feet and my heels, and this is exactly what I do. When she's right, and she'll say, I'm right, aren't I? And I'm like, shut up, woman. She could just tell me I'm right. And I said, I don't want to discuss this. She goes, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And then you're right. And I'll do what you asked me to do. But can I tell you something? When she keeps going sometimes, then she'll stop herself and she'll say, I gave you too much information, didn't I? And I was like, no, you gave me too much opinion, not information. And it's that yielding. It's that submitting. Do it now. Learn to yield now. Second word, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse number 34. I'm just trying to make you marketable, because a good guy won't touch you with a 10-foot pole if you're always saying, no, I don't care what they say. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Look at 1 Corinthians 7 in verse number 34, if you will. And ladies, these are just incredible verses right here. Look at 1 Corinthians 7:34. There is a difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman, look at this, careth for the things of the Lord. There's that submission again. That she may be, what's the next word? Holy, both in what? Body and in what? Spirit. Second word, are you ready? Attitude. 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 Fix your stinking attitude now. Do you know it's very obvious when a woman is mad? It is. Because she'll use words, one word, to make you think everything's okay. But you know, regardless of what's coming out of here, she's not happy. Like, for instance, are you okay? Fine. So you're fine. I'm fine. So like everything's okay. Okay. And they're always saying the last word you said in the phrase. So it's going to be a great day. Let me tell you something. You know something's not right in here. Let me tell you something. You can put on all the makeup you want to put on. You can fix that hair up. But if you have a stinking attitude, you're horrible looking. I was doing a wedding. Oh, I got to be careful. I was performing a ceremony. I was in front of people with two people that were dressed up, getting ready to kiss for the first time. And we were in the back room. And so I stopped by to see this person that was in a wedding dress. And so I stopped by to see it, as I always do, knock on the door. And she comes to the door, gorgeous wedding dress, modest in the whole 9 yards, beautiful makeup, beautiful hair, and she was a teenager of ours, and in the youth department, and I get to do her wedding now, and she's like in her mid-20s, and I'm telling you right now, she is like somebody, she stepped out of a wedding magazine, and I'm thinking to myself, when he sees you, he's going to flip, and so I saw her, and I'm like, this is great. Let me tell you something. I said, how are you doing? Are you nervous? She says, oh, I'm so nervous, Brother Bob, and I'm just really nervous. Well, then her bridesmaids kind of stepped out. I'm like, holy cow. Man, the guys that are escorting y'all, they're going to want to get married like today to you people. And there was one bridesmaid, I guess she didn't get her way. She was beautiful. They're dressed to the nine. But she was like, this is stupid. This is dumb. I can't. And I'm sitting there going, oh my. Oh my. Oh my. You know in my mind I was saying? Oh, you're horrible. And no amount of makeup covers up a bad spirit. Listen to me. No amount of hairdo covers up a bad spirit. You better fix your pouting, and you better fix your attitude now. Because I would never, if you'll act that way in public and get mad, and by the way, when you cross your leg and you're wagging that, that's like a cow wagging its tail back in Texas when that cow's just irritated. You can tell when a woman starts wagging that tail. She ain't got to go to the restroom. She's just stinking mad, and that's all there is to it. Or they start cutting the eyes that way, or they stare you down, or they ignore you, or they give you a cold shoulder. Let me tell you something. You better take the circumstances, and you better fix it quickly, and you better get back to a great spirit, because I would never tell a guy to marry a girl who is always doing this and always just their spirit just cantankerous. Mad, angry, sarcastic, demeaning, just cut the eyes right at you. Whoa, woman. It's like the lady the other day said, I would kill you if I was married to you. And I said, woman, I'd be willing to die if I was married to you. Because there's something about them spirit. And I have seen men, strong men, but women, wives with a terrible attitude. And let me tell you something, the strongest of men are weak little puppies. If a woman and a man get into it and they're married, guess who's going to win? The woman. And I mean that every time. You don't want to beat up on your husband emotionally. I told a lady the other day, look, I'm not going to be a punching bag for your bad day. That ain't going to happen. Ladies, fix it. Be sweet. That doesn't mean you lose your opinion, but be holy in your spirit. Then the next thing, first thing it said there that we read, the next word, are you ready? Not only submission, your attitude, but your appearance. Now, when I say appearance, I'll get into attire, but let's talk about appearance. Let me tell you something. Nobody wants a lady who can't be holy in her body. Your body belongs to the Lord Jesus Christ now. And when you learn that this body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, but this body, if it's not the temple of the Holy Ghost, and you don't treat it as such. And by the way, I got to be honest with you. How you treat your body has everything to do with whether or not a guy would ever want to marry you. You may sit here and go, well, you know, I'm just myself and that's all there is to it. Let me tell you something. You would do well. You would do well. When I say body, I'm not talking attire. Can I give you 3 words I think describe a holy body? Are you ready? Appropriate body language. Learn it. Learn appropriate body language. Go to your mama. Go to some godly lady that you trust. Let me tell you something. When I go out a door, I don't want to get run over by a woman coming in the door. Get out of my way. Nobody wants to take their wife on a date and have her open the door and carry you across a puddle. Nobody wants that. It's appropriate body language. But I'm going to tell you right now, you will spark the attention of a godly man when it's time if you learn now. Never open a door for yourself if a guy's around. Just stand there. The other day I was on a date with my wife, and I got out of the car, and we're carrying on this in-depth conversation, and so I'm talking to her, we're laughing. Well, I was talking, so I got out of the car, and I just started walking to the restaurant, and I get about halfway to the restaurant, and I'm talking, all of a sudden it's like, where'd she go? And she's back in the car, and she is just sitting there. So like an idiot, I turn around and go, come on. Come on. And she just smiles. I said, what? What's the matter? Come on. And she just smiles. And then she points. I go, oh. So I go over there, open the door, said, ma'am, would you like to go on a date? And she extends her hand, and I take her hand, and I escort her out. Let me tell you something. My wife would have sat there until I opened that door. Want to know why? Because somebody taught her have appropriate body language. Ladies, listen to me. You don't need to sit with your arm back around a chair like this and appropriate body language. You don't need to sit like you're a linebacker. You know, I was preaching the other day, a Spanish conference, and this Spanish teenager girl, I guess she was so into the sermon that she started out nice, I guess you could say. She had this long dress on that went down to her ankles, and by the time she was done, she was modest. I mean, she didn't embarrass me at all. By the time it was done, she had both knees on her elbows, and she was like that, listening to preaching, you know, scrunched forward, and she was like, wow. You know, I'm sitting to myself thinking, woman, if you could see yourself, you're never going to get married, because nobody wants to marry a woman who sits there and learn appropriate body language. Second thing, when I think about holy and body, number 2, appropriate body talking. And what I mean by that is, do you know how you do things are very, very important. Not only your body language, you know, going through a door, sitting down. You won't be marked. I don't want my wife to embarrass me. My wife has never embarrassed me because somebody taught her how to walk like a lady, how to go through a door like a lady, how to sit like a lady. But it's much more than that. You know, your eyes talk. They talk. They really do. And you're going to have to learn that my eyes, when I'm learning to master the art of eyes, let me tell you something. Your eyes are talking. Your face is talking. Make sure that the nodding up and down of the head is talking. Your ability to cut a conversation short when it does not the way it's supposed to go. The other day, my wife was at the church, and she came up right next to me, and I could tell something wasn't quite right. And then a gentleman was headed our way, and she went to the other side of me. And I said, we got problems, don't we? And she said, sweetheart, I tried with my eyes and my face and my words to cut him short, but he just won't stop. And I said, okay. So I turned around, and she's standing behind me, and I said, hey, how you doing? And I said, I'm Pastor Gray. You must be new here. Because normally when a woman's done talking and she walks away, what that means is she doesn't want you in her space anymore. And I said, especially when it's the pastor's wife. He looked at me and he said, that was your wife? And I said, absolutely. And outside of my clerical robes, I have killed 5 men already. I'm a mass murderer. And they're buried in the back. And he goes, oh. I said, did you not pick up on the fact she was done talking with you? He goes, well, most women. And I said, she's not most women. Let me tell you something. Those eyes have got to talk. You use them in such a way that you get your message across. Don't ever talk to me that way. You do it. You have it in you because you use it at the wrong time. Use it at the right time. When a guy starts, you just cut them. Your mama knows how to do it. She cuts them eyes 100 times. I got to hurry. Submission, spirit, your attitude, your body language. Next, your attire. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse number 9, if you'll go there. And I have about 3-4 minutes here. Go to 1 Timothy chapter 2. Now, these are just things that will make you marketable. But you have to start mastering them now so that when you get married, you're way ahead. You're way ahead of the game with your husband. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse number 9. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not big into teenage dating because I think you're still growing and I still think you're maturing. And I think that I hate this. Are you ready? I've always hated it. I never admit it, except the last couple of years. You know when they say girls are 2 to 3 years more mature than guys? Y'all really believe that kind of stuff? It's true. So if you're 16 dating a 16-year-old, you might as well be dating a 13-year-old, all right? So I wouldn't date. And 1 Timothy chapter 2, look at verse number 9. In like manner also that a woman adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broidered hair or gold or pearls or costly array. Now stop right there. I don't have time to go into it, but I will tell you this. It is not saying don't dress up. It is saying, if you read a little bit later on, that the main focal point about you should not be the outside. The outside of who you are, your clothes should always be modest. And I'm not even going to go into that and presume to go into it. However, I will tell you this, that a guy knows much more about wrong women's fashion than women do. Promise you that one. Because if you know how a guy thinks, you would not wear half the stuff you wear. So there is a modesty factor. But I'll tell you where it comes. Your modesty starts from the heart out. It doesn't start from the clothes in. It starts from the heart out. And if your attire can always be pristine, and what I mean by that is always be appropriate in your attire. Always be somebody that you always check the mirror before you walk out the door. And I will tell you this, if a doubt hits your head about what you're wearing, it is the Holy Spirit speaking to your heart. And if you're sitting there, the other day my wife came out, and this is just my wife, and I love my wife. My wife came out the other day, and she was wearing something, and she, as soon as she walked out of the bedroom, she looked at me and she said, "I shouldn't wear this, should I?" And I said, "Sweetheart, obviously the Holy Spirit's already talked to you." And she said, "I know he has, but you wouldn't be pleased if I wore this, would you?" And I said, "Sweetie, I got to tell you, I wouldn't be pleased." And she said, "Okay, that's all it takes." And she went in, took off the outfit, put it into a bag, and went out to the back and threw it away. Because in her heart and her mind, she wouldn't want to do anything that would disgrace her husband. But more than that, she wouldn't want to do anything that disgraced her Lord. But the Holy Spirit had already told her. Don't ignore that on the inside. Check the mirror before you walk out the door. And the last thing is this, is not only submission, but yielding. And I'm going to use, very quickly, go to 1 Timothy chapter 2, you're there, and look at verse number 12. And ladies, your yielding brings you protection. And I want you to truly get into a habit that will help your husband more than anything else. And if you have ears to hear this and kind of receive this in a young age and get this done, you'll be amazed. I want you to look at 1 Timothy chapter 2, if you don't mind, in verse number 12. "But I suffer not a woman to teach nor to usurp," what's the next word? "Authority over the man." Are you there? 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 12. "But I suffer not a woman to teach nor to usurp" what? "Authority over the man, but to be in" what? "Silence." And the example that was used was this. Look at this. "For Adam was first formed, then Eve." Then look at verse 14. "And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in transgression." Do you know what? Eve literally, the devil came, Eve made a decision and then told her husband the decision she had made. The best thing you'll ever do is when you're asked a question is say, "You know what? Let me check with my dad. Let me check with my dad." "Hey, can you go?" "Let me check with my dad. Let me ask my dad." If you don't have a dad, then say, "Hey, let me check with pastor. Let me check with the youth pastor. Let me check with them." Because you have to get into the habit to where you don't commit your life to anything. You ask somebody to help you make that decision. Eve, when she got the information about this fruit, you know what she should have done? She should have looked at the devil and said, "Hey, my husband will be right back. Can we kind of hold off till I ask my husband about this?" And she should have asked her husband, "Hey, they want me to eat this fruit. What do you think?" And Adam would have said, No. God said don't eat the fruit." "Okay, I can't eat it. Give it back." Most wives make commitments for their husbands, and guess what their husbands have to do? Their husbands have to live with the commitment. Start training yourself now that your answer is always, "I need to check with my dad." Deanna, she's 25. She's the only daughter we have, and she's 25. I can remember when she came to me, she was in college, and this guy had asked her out on a date, and she didn't want to go. Oh, she did not want to go. So she used the big cop-out. Guess what it was? "I have to ask my father." "Well, you didn't ask me about the money that you spent on the clothes. Why are you asking me now?" And she come running in my office, shut my door when I was a youth pastor, leaned up against the door and said, Dad, he's going to come ask you. Please don't say yes. don't say yes. And so he came to the door. He knocked on the door. I opened it. She's standing behind the door. So the door's here. I'm looking at the young man. She's behind the door. No. And I said, you know what? I looked at the young man. I'm going to call his name Tim. And I said, Tim, you're a wonderful young man. Probably the best young man I have met in a long time. Deanna's going, Dad, don't. I could see her in my peripheral vision. And I said, would you like to take my daughter on a date? He goes, yes, sir. Yes, sir, Brother Bob. I would love to take your daughter on a date. Deanna's going, oh, Dad, no. No, Dad, no. And I was like, you know what? Why don't you go sit in the waiting room? Give me about 10 minutes. Kind of let me think about it. And will you be good to her? I promise, Brother Bob, I'll be good to her. I said, now, you know, you touch her, I kill you. Yes, sir, I know. I got the date all planned. And I said, where are you taking her? And they could take her to a nice restaurant. I said, you going to pay for everything? Yeah, I'll pay for everything. I said, why don't you just go wait and let me. So I shut the door. Deanna's back there. Dad, you better not say yes. And that's all there is to it. I went out and told him, no, I don't think that now's a good time to take her on a date. Can I tell you, if you'll get into the habit of doing that, because the last thing a husband needs to see are more bills and more bills and more bills and more bills because you kept making the decision. Get into that habit now to where when somebody asks you a big question, you just simply say, I need to go ask my dad. Because people who are up to no good in your life, they don't like the word dad. They don't like the word pastor. They don't like you ask anybody. Make yourself marketable. You'll have a good marriage if you can master these 5 and just put them down.